The courtroom was cold, but a fire of humiliation burned on my cheeks. The lawyer, a man in a suit that cost more than I made in a year, pointed a perfectly manicured finger at me. "And who are you?" he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're just the maid." He said it like a curse. Just the maid. A ghost who polished silver and changed sheets, invisible until you needed to blame someone. In that moment, with the weight of 100 pairs of eyes on me, I wanted to shrink away. I wanted to be that ghost again. But then I looked over at the defendant's table, at Mr. Alistair Croft. His face was pale, his eyes hollowed out by fear and betrayal. He wasn't my boss in that moment. He was just a man, a kind man, who was about to lose his life because no one else was brave enough to speak. And I knew, right then, that being just the maid was the one thing that could save him. My name is Elara. I started working at the Croft mansion 6 months ago. It wasn't a dream job. It was a survival job. Money sent home to my mother, food on my own small table. The mansion was beautiful, but lonely. It felt like a museum for a life that wasn't being lived anymore. Mr. Croft's wife had passed away a year earlier, and a quiet sadness clung to the walls like dust. He was a good man. Most wealthy people I'd worked for barely saw me. I was a pair of hands. But Mr. Croft saw me. He'd find me in the library, dusting his late wife's collection of poetry books, and he'd ask, "Elara, which one is your favorite?" The first time he did it, I froze, expecting a trick. But his eyes were genuine. He learned my mother was sick and would leave a small bonus with a note that just said, "For her medicine." He never made a big deal of it. It was just kind. One rainy afternoon, I was cleaning his study. He was staring at a photograph on his desk, a smiling woman with his same gentle eyes. He looked up and saw me. "That was my Eleanor," he said, his voice thick with grief. She made this house a home." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded, my heart aching for him. He looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "Thank you for taking such good care of her home, Elara." That was the man they were calling a monster. The man they accused of murdering his business partner, Marcus Thorne, in that very study. The night it happened, I remember the shouting. It wasn't unusual. Marcus was a frequent visitor, loud and arrogant. He always treated me like a piece of furniture. That night, their argument was worse than usual. I heard words like fraud and ruin. I stayed in the kitchen, my hands trembling. Then there was a loud crash. Silence. A terrifying, heavy silence. By the time I gathered the courage to peek out, Marcus was gone. Mr. Croft was standing in the middle of his study, looking dazed, a heavy crystal decanter shattered on the floor. He just kept whispering. He was going to destroy everything. The next morning, the police were at the door. Marcus Thorne's body had been found. The police said the evidence against Mr. Croft was overwhelming. They found emails, financial records, and a witness, a neighbor who claimed they saw Mr. Croft threatening Marcus on the balcony. It was all a lie, a perfectly constructed cage, and the door to that cage had just slammed shut. Mr. Croft's expensive lawyer, the one who was supposed to save him, dropped the case just a week before the trial. He said the evidence was insurmountable. I knew what that meant. It meant Marcus, or whoever was behind this, had paid him off. Mr. Croft was left with a court-appointed lawyer who looked at him with tired, defeated eyes before he'd said a word. I saw the last spark of hope die in Mr. Croft's face. And that's when a different fire started in me, a slow, burning anger. They were going to let a good man rot because he was quiet, because he was grieving, because it was easier. It's in these moments of helplessness the true heroes are born. If you believe in the power of loyalty and the courage to stand up against injustice, please take a moment to hit that like button. It tells us you value stories about everyday people doing extraordinary things. I knew I had to do something, but what? I was just the maid. What did I know? What could I possibly say that a team of high-powered lawyers couldn't? Then I remembered something small, something no one else would ever have noticed. The night of the argument, when I was cleaning up the last of the dinner dishes, I saw Marcus Thorne leave the dining room to join Mr. Croft in the study. As he walked past me, he was fiddling with something in his hand, a pen. It was a very specific, very expensive-looking pen, dark green marble with a gold clip. He was always showing it off, calling it his lucky pen. He had used it to sign the original partnership papers with Mr. Croft. He was holding it as he walked into that study. But when the police did their sweep, I saw the evidence photos. I saw everything they collected from the room, and the pen wasn't there. It was nothing, a forgotten detail, but it nagged at me. Why would he take his lucky pen into a heated argument and then just leave without it? Unless he never left at all. Not alive, anyway. I went to the public defender. I told him my story. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Miss Elara," he said, barely looking at me, "a pen? The prosecution has financial motives and a witness. You have a missing pen. It's not enough. They'll tear you to shreds on the stand. They'll say you're in love with him, that you're making it up to protect him." He was right. I knew he was right. Fear coiled in my stomach. What if they twisted my words? What if they made me look like a fool and hurt Mr. Croft's case even more? I could lose my job. I could be deported. I had everything to lose. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I just kept seeing Mr. Croft's kind, sad eyes. I thought about the poetry books and the extra money from my mother. He wasn't just my employer. He was one of the few people in this new, lonely country who had shown me basic human decency. And decency, I decided, had to be repaid, even if it scared me to death. The next day, I walked into that courtroom. When Mr. Croft's lawyer called me to the stand as a last-ditch character witness, the prosecutor's eyes lit up. He saw an easy kill. And that's when he said it. "She's just the maid." My heart hammered against my ribs. The whole room was spinning. I took a deep breath, clenching my fists in my lap until my knuckles were white. I looked at the jury, at their curious, skeptical faces, and then I looked at the prosecutor. My voice came out not as a whisper, but a clear, steady thread. Yes, I am the maid. And because I am the maid, I see things people don't want me to see. I clean up the messes people leave behind, and I notice when something is out of place. The prosecutor laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Oh, and what did you notice, Miss Maid? A dust bunny out of place? A misplaced coaster?" The courtroom chuckled. The humiliation was a physical thing, a hot wave that threatened to drown me. But I held on to that image of the pen. I noticed Mr. Thorne's pen. He leaned forward. His pen. I clarified, his lucky pen. The green marble one, He was holding it in his hand when he went into the study that night. But it wasn't on the list of items found at the scene, and it wasn't on the list of items found on his body. The prosecutor rolled his eyes. A pen. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, their entire defense is a missing pen. He turned back to me, his voice like silk-wrapped steel. Maybe he lost it. Maybe he left it in his car. Maybe you're imagining things. Isn't it true, Elara, that you have a certain affection for your employer? That you would say anything to save him? The accusation hung in the air, vile and sticky. My face burned. This was it. This was the moment I would either break or fight.
The pressure is on, and Elara is all alone. Do you think a simple observation can unravel a massive conspiracy? Let me know what you think will happen next in the comments below. And if you're on the edge of your seat, make sure you've subscribed and turned on notifications so you don't miss how this ends. I looked past the lawyer, past the judge, and my eyes landed on someone sitting in the back of the gallery. It was Mr. Croft's old lawyer, the one who had abandoned him. And sitting right next to him, looking cool and confident, was a man I recognized from newspaper clippings. The new CEO of the company, the man who took over after Marcus's death and Mr. Croft's arrest, a man who was known to be Marcus Torn's closest friend. And suddenly, the pieces clicked into place. The missing pen wasn't just a detail, it was the key. I turned my attention back to the prosecutor. I ignored his disgusting question. I would not give him that power. Instead, I focused on the jury. Being a maid teaches you to pay attention to details. It teaches you to see the real person behind the fancy suit. Mr. Croft is a man who grieves his wife. He is a man who asks the maid what her favorite poem is. That is not the man who commits murder. Objection! The witness is speculating on character, the prosecutor barked. Sustained, the judge said, but his eyes were on me, a flicker of interest in them now. The man who commits murder, I went on, my heart pounding, is the man who needs to cover his tracks. The man who is so arrogant, he thinks no one will notice the little things. He thinks no one would ever listen to the maid. I took a gamble, a wild, terrifying gamble. I looked directly at the man in the gallery, Marcus's friend. The real killer knew he couldn't leave that pen in the study, because that pen had his fingerprints on it too, from when he borrowed it earlier that day. He took it with him when he left Mr. Croft's house, long after Mr. Croft was alone and in shock. He took it, and I bet, my voice rang out clear and true, I bet he still has it. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. All eyes turned to the man in the gallery, the new CEO. He froze, his face turning ashen. The prosecutor was stunned into silence. He didn't know what was happening. This wasn't in his script. The judge leaned forward. Bailiff, please escort that gentleman to the front. The man started to sweat. As the bailiff approached him, he instinctively shoved his hand into his jacket pocket. It was a tiny movement, a reflex, but everyone saw it. The bailiff reached him, and the man's composure shattered. He tried to stand, to protest, but it was too late. The bailiff reached into his pocket and pulled out a single object. He held it up for the judge to see. A fountain pen, dark green marble with a gold clip. Silence, a thick, suffocating silence. Then chaos. Mr. Croft was cleared of all charges. The investigation was reopened, focused on the real conspiracy. The new CEO and the crooked lawyer had framed Mr. Croft to cover up their own massive fraud. They had killed Marcus when he threatened to expose them. They thought they had committed the perfect crime. They had planned for everything, the alibi, the witness, the evidence, everything, except for the one person they never saw, the maid. 6 months later, I walked up the steps of the courthouse again. This time, I wasn't in a simple dress, my hands raw from cleaning chemicals. I was wearing a smart blazer, carrying a heavy leather briefcase filled with books. Mr. Alistair Croft met me at the top of the steps. The sadness was gone from his eyes, replaced by a deep, quiet gratitude. He had paid for my entire education. You saw the truth when no one else would, Elara, he had told me. The world needs more people like you, not cleaning houses, but defending them. I was in my first year of law school. As we walked into the building together, side by side, a reporter rushed up to us. He looked at Mr. Croft, then gave me a dismissive glance. "Mr. Croft, any comment on your new life?" he asked, already angling his camera away from me. Mr. Croft put a gentle hand on my arm, stopping me. He looked directly at the reporter, his voice full of a strength I had never heard before. "My life isn't new," he said, pulling me forward slightly so I was standing with him as an equal. "It was just saved, and not by a team of lawyers. It was saved by her." The reporter looked at me, confused, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. He didn't say the words. He didn't have to. I could see the question on his face. But she was just the maid. I smiled. A real, genuine smile. Because he was right. I was, until I faced that courtroom alone. And in saving Mr. Croft, I had ended up saving myself. This story is a reminder that courage isn't about your title or your position. It's about the strength in your heart. If this story touched you or made you believe in the underdog, please share it with someone who needs to hear that their voice matters. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.